morning, as always, we'll go to our coach, Chamber President Larry McHugh.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you and the Legislative Committee for putting this event together virtually. Usually we're together with 100 and so people. We have about 150 that pre-signed for this, which is very good. I want to personally thank all of our legislators that are joining us here today. As I say all the time, I have a tremendous amount of respect for each and every one of you. We might disagree on issues, but our hearts are in the same place. We want to make the state and the county and region a better place to live and work for all of its citizens. Also, a big thanks to Rich Corella, who's not with us today. He's at a funeral, and Maureen Westbrook for their phenomenal job leading our legislative committee and being our executive board. Before turning this over to Tom, I'd just like to mention how thankful I am to Comcast for their terrific engagement in our community, as well as their support of many local programs and their ongoing investment in so many things spread throughout not only Middlesex County, the state of Connecticut. Home broadband, especially today, is a lifeline for connecting loved ones, services, news, and entertainment. And I applaud Comcast for the efforts in making to provide this the most reliable broadband system they can at this point. I'm now happy to introduce Tom Byrne, our chairman, who will introduce Kristen Roberts. And Kristen is just an unbelievable supporter of ours from Comcast. I've known her for a long period of time. I'm very proud of her, and she's tremendous. And Tom Byrne has done a magnificent job this year as our chairperson, leading us, and I know each one of our legislators here and our members through this terrible situation at COVID. But we are going to come out of it. We are going to be stronger, and we are going to be better as we move through these next few months. So again, Tom, thank you for your leadership, and I'll turn this over to you now.
Thanks, Larry. Always appreciate the locker room. Get us going here. So good morning and welcome to our Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce 2021 Legislative Breakfast Zoom meeting. I'd like to thank all of our legislators on the panel for taking time out of their busy schedule to join us here today. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to converse with our elected officials and talk about our thoughts and concerns for our Chamber's business community. As Larry said, kudos goes out to the Chamber's Legislative Committee, which is co-chaired by Maureen Westbrook and Rich Corella. The committee, along with the Chamber's Vice President, Jeff Pugliese, have done great work over the years to keep us informed of important upcoming legislation and keeping us connected with our legislators. I'd also like to thank this year's sponsor of our event, Comcast. It should not be too surprising that Comcast is our sponsor today, as they have taken on that role for this event for over 15 years. We truly appreciate all that Comcast has done, not only for our chamber, but also for our community. And I'd now like to introduce Kristen Roberts, who is on our panel today for some remarks. Kristen is Vice President of the Communications for Comcast's Western New England region. She's a longtime member of both the Chamber's Executive Committee and our Board of Directors. Kristen is also a huge supporter of several other community organizations in Middlesex County. Thank you, Kristen, for all that you do personally for our chamber and for all that Comcast has done and continues to do for our region. Kristen.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone, for joining this morning for our 2021 Middlesex County Chamber Legislative Breakfast. And I'd like to recognize and thank my colleague, Rob Early, who's our Vice President of State Government Affairs, who's responsible for sponsoring today's breakfast. I think Rob is with us as well. This past year has been challenging and unique, and the pandemic has made clear the importance of high-speed internet, as Larry said. As thousands of Connecticut residents continue to stay home, we recognize that Comcast plays an important role in helping our customers stay connected to their families, their workplaces, their telehealth appointments, their schools, and the latest information about the virus. While the pandemic has made a lot of things challenging for our residents, our state's internet infrastructure has been a source of strength. At Comcast, we are continually investing in our network to provide the best, most reliable broadband service in the country. And we are making business updates to ensure we meet our customers' needs now and in the future. Since the onset of COVID-19, our teams have worked tirelessly to ensure our network is operating at peak performance and that we are helping customers navigate this unprecedented crisis. Our local network teams have also tripled network augmentations, installed new hardware, and we've upgraded network software, all to expand capacity, ensure that our network could meet the rapidly growing needs of our customers. We perform nearly 700,000 diagnostic speed tests daily, which show that on average, it's meeting and at most times exceeding speeds across all of our service areas. During this uncertain time, we also know that low-income families and individuals in the communities we serve are finding things even more difficult to manage if they do not have internet at home. At the very start of the pandemic, we announced that Comcast will provide free internet service for the first 60 days for new customers who sign up for Internet Essentials, which is our low-cost broadband program for eligible low-income individuals. And we've extended that offer through June 30th of this year. Internet Essentials provides low-cost internet access for low-income families for under $10. It's $9.95. And it also includes free access to more than 1.5 million public Xfinity Wi-Fi hotspots, which is the largest of its kind in the country. And it includes also a subsidized computer for under $150. We're also continuing to waive the requirement that new Internet Essentials customers do not have back debt with us, so that more families in low-income households can apply to the program. We've also extended our COVID-19 commitments 3 times during the past year, and they are part of our comprehensive efforts to help families and individuals stay connected through the pandemic. In Connecticut, these commitments include being an integral partner of Governor Ned Lamont's Everybody Learns initiative to help provide free at-home internet for 60,000 students across the state, as well as partnering with the state Department of Education to provide Internet Essentials to even more low-income families. Going one step further, we also selected a number of small businesses around the state to receive marketing and technology support in the coming year through our Comcast Rise program, which is a multi-year initiative created to help strengthen and empower small businesses hit hardest by COVID-19, starting with Black, Indigenous, and people of color-owned businesses. Above all, Comcast remains passionately committed to strengthening our communities across the state and inspiring our customers and employees to make a positive impact. In 2019, we invested $5 million in cash and in-kind contributions to support nonprofit programs across Connecticut, and we have no intention of slowing down. For example, we will soon be launching Wi-Fi connected lift zones in communities, in community centers across Connecticut, including Middlesex County, Hartford, New Haven, Waterbury, and more, to provide not only free internet connectivity, but also to access hundreds of hours of educational and digital skills. This is part of a multi-year program to launch more than 1,000 Wi-Fi connected lift zones in community centers nationwide. As the year progresses, we will continue to identify even more cities and organizations across Connecticut where we can continue to add lift zones. So I'm really excited to be able to announce to you this morning that we're beginning to do a network enhancement project in our Clinton, Groton, and Lakeville systems, so that in the coming months, we can introduce gigabit service in those areas. And yes, that includes lower Middlesex County, including Essex and Old Saybrook. Since 2017 alone, we have devoted more than $12 billion to strengthening and expanding our network, including more than adding 33,000 new fiber routes across the nation. And every 2.5 years, we add as much capacity to the network as we added in all the previous years combined. Today's announcement demonstrates our focus on innovation and our continued investment to build and evolve a smart, reliable network in Connecticut. And we are excited to share this news with you first. As details of our network enhancement project become available, I'll be sure to update you all. In closing, I just wanted to thank the Chamber again, Coach McHugh, Jeff and Johanna, our board of directors, and fellow Chamber members and friends who are here this morning to support this organization in our community. So thank you so much. And I think I'm turning it back over to Jeff.
Thanks so much, Kristen. Appreciate those great remarks this morning. Let's get right to it. We understand there are other meetings on the legislative calendar this Friday morning, so we're going to have as much of a substantive conversation as possible. We do have a number of our questions already ready to roll. We collected them from our legislative committee and board of directors, and we'll share those shortly. But what I'm going to do now is introduce each of our legislators and ask you all to just say a quick hello and list the committees that you currently serve on. We're going to start in the Senate and District 9, which is Cromwell, Middletown, Newington, Rocky Hill, and Weathersfield. As you know, we have Senator Matt Lesser. Good morning, Matt. You want to share your committees, please?
Yes, good morning. And thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Larry, for putting this on. And thank you to Comcast for hosting it. I'm Senator Matt Lesser. I represent Middletown, Cromwell, Rocky Hill, Newington, and Weathersfield. I am the Senate Chair of the Insurance and Real Estate Committee. I also am the Vice Chair of the Human Services Committee. I serve on Appropriations, Judiciary, Labor and Public Employees, and I serve under Senator Needleman at Energy and Technology.
Thank you, Senator. Certainly a full plate there. Let's go to District 12. We're happy to welcome back Senator Christine Cohen. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Jeff, and thanks to the Middlesex Chamber again for hosting this event. Good morning, everybody. I am Christine Cohen, State Senator for the 12th, representing Brantford, Guilford, Madison, North Brantford, Killingworth, and a good chunk of Durham. I serve as Senate Chair of the Environment Committee and Vice Chair of the Commerce Committee. It's my second term on each of those. I also serve on the Finance Committee, which is new for me this year, in addition to children and aging. So when it comes to the pandemic, certainly all things related, my committees really touch upon each of these. So looking forward to this robust session, despite the unusual circumstances, and help getting Connecticut back on its feet. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us. Let's go to District 13. We have Senator Mary Daughtry Abrams back with us this morning. Good morning, Mary.
Hi, thank you, Jeff. I'm Senator Mary Daughtry Abrams. Before I get to my committees, I just want to thank the Chamber for the role that you've played in supporting our businesses and through this pandemic. I think it's really been incredible, the work that you've done. So thank you for that. I chair Public Health. I am Vice Chair of Education. I serve on Approps, Aging, Veterans, and Transportation. My district is Barrington, Middletown, Middlefield, Rockfall, and Cheshire. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Senator. Appreciate that. Let's go to the 33rd Senatorial District. We welcome back our friend, Senator Norm Needleman. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Larry. Good morning, everybody from the Chamber. And thank you again for hosting this best chamber in the state and best chamber in the country. I am the senator representing the 33rd District, and it's a hell of a lot of towns, so I'm not going to mention them all, but it's 12 of them. I chair the Energy and Technology Committee and Vice Chair of Planning and Development, and I'm on Finance, Transportation, and what the hell else am I on? I'm drawing a blank. So 5 committees. Very happy to serve the 33rd.
We're happy to have you here this morning. Appreciate that very much. One of our newest members of our delegation from the 34th Senate District, Senator Paul Ciccarello. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. How are you? And thank you for inviting me. Also want to echo how important these chambers are. I'm also a member of the Quinnipiac and New Haven Chamber. You do a great service to small businesses. I have a few small businesses, so I find it very helpful and have found it very helpful. I'm honored to be a part of today's discussion. Center of the 34th District, which represents Wallingford, East Haven, North Haven, and a bit of Durham. That's how I get to come to these, by representing that little piece of Durham. I am on the Public Safety, Appropriations, Housing, and Veteran Affairs. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Happy to have you as part of the delegation. Moving over to the House side, we are going to start in the 32nd House District. That's Cromwell and Portland. We're happy to welcome back Representative Christy Carpino. Good morning, Christy.
So everybody, for those I haven't met, this is my 6th term. And this term I'm sitting on Public Health, Government Affairs and Elections. So we will be busy in both of those committees, as well as Legislative Management and Regulation Review, where I see a number of businesses come through to look at fine details. So thanks for having us, and I look forward to seeing you all.
Thank you very much. Let's go over to another new member of our delegation who we're happy to have and look forward to working with from the 33rd House District. That's Middletown, Representative Brandon Chafee. Good morning, Brandon.
Morning. Thanks for setting this up, Jeff, and the rest of people working at the chamber. My name is Brandon Chafee. I represent the 33rd House District, which covers half of Middletown. I am currently serving on the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee, the Environmental Committee, and the Transportation Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to have you. Moving down to the 35th House District, Clinton, Killingworth, and Westbrook, another new member of our delegation, Representative Christine Goupil. Good morning, Christine.
Good morning. Thanks so much for hosting. I think the last time I was in capacity talking with you is for the first selectman for the town of Clinton. I currently represent Clinton, Westbrook, and Killingworth, and I am on the Human Services, Transportation, and Vice Chair of Planning and Development. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go to District 36. That's Haddam, Chester, Deep River, and Essex. Representative Christine Palm is back with us. Good morning, Christine.
Good morning, Jeff. Hi, everybody. I want to give a special thanks to all the folks in the audience, the advocates, the small business owners, the academics, all the folks who are watching us today. Thank you for being here, as well as thanks to the Chamber. It's my privilege to be here and to represent those 4 exquisite Connecticut River towns. I serve on Judiciary, Environment, the Government Administration and Elections Committee, and I am chair of Internship, which is not a bill raising committee, but I am expanding it this year to include the Young Earners Prosperity Roundtable, which may be of interest to the business folks because it's about entrepreneurship in our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's jump over to District 82, Middlefield and Meriden, another new member who we're happy to have, Representative Michael Quinn. Good morning, Mike. You're muted, Representative Quinn.
Does help. First time I've done that this week. Good morning, and thanks to you, Jeff and Larry, and all the members of the Middlesex Chamber for putting this on, and for Comcast for being the sponsor. I'm also a member of the Mid-State Chamber. My district covers the eastern side of Meriden and all of Middlefield and Rockfall. And the committees that I have are the Judiciary Committee, the Public Safety Committee, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Executive and Legislative Nominations Committee. And again, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it very much. Let's go over to District 86, and we're happy to welcome back our friend Representative Vin Candelora, who's now a member of leadership. So look forward to working with him in that regard as well. So Vin, you want to say a quick hello?
Yeah, sure. Hi, good morning. I'm Vincent Candelora. I represent North Branford, Guilford, Durham, and Wallingford. And I guess this is my 8th term, and I've been newly elected the Republican House Leader.
Congratulations, Vinny. Appreciate that. Let's move on to the 100th House District. That's Middletown. Representative Quentin Q. Phipps is back with us this morning. Good morning, Q.
Good morning, Vice President. Great to see everyone. It's always good to be amongst my friends here at the Chamber. I said a place that I credit for a lot of my leadership development in the early parts of my career. So always glad to be with you all. I'm Q Phipps, State Representative 100 District, which is half of Middletown. I am the new chair of the Agent Committee. I also serve on Commerce, on Finance, and I am the founder and also co-chair of the Downtown Main Street Work Group and Caucus.
Thank you very much, Q. Happy to have you as always. Let's go back down county for a quick moment. The 23rd House District, Representative Devin Carney is back with us this morning. Good morning, Devin.
Hi, good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Larry. It's great to see everyone this morning. Devin Carney, the 23rd District, Lyme, Old Saybrook, and Westbrook. So I actually get to represent Middlesex and New London County. I'm in my, just started my 4th term. I'm ranking member of the Transportation Committee, and I also serve on the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee, where I'm the ranking member of the Transportation Bonding Subcommittee, so a lot of transportation stuff. And then I'm starting my 1st year on the Education Committee.
Awesome, Devin. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. And let's go to the 101st, Madison and Durham, another new member that we look forward to working with, Representative John Michael Parker. Good morning, John Michael.
Morning, Jeff. Thanks, hey, everybody. I'm John Michael Parker, first, and I'm serving on the Education and Environment and Public Health Committee. Happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Happy to have you. Thanks so much. And we will also be joined by Representative Irene Haynes shortly. She had a prior meeting, but she will be joining us. And just quickly for our chamber members on the line here this morning, I dropped into the chat a link to our delegation bio sheet, which has information on all of our legislators and also their contact information. They're very strong with constituent service, and they will get back to you. So please reach out. So with that, I'll kick it over to our legislative co-chair, Maureen Westbrook, to begin our question and answer session. Maureen.
Great. Good morning, everybody. And we're going to do kind of questions that relate to our public policy agenda and things that we've heard from our members already here. And, we'll try to, in the interest of keeping this moving, have a few people to answer each of these questions as we throw them out. We'll try to kind of focus on by your committee representation, or just if you want to jump in with a specific response or interest, feel free. I think we're going to kick it off with COVID. We're here on behalf of, so many small businesses, large and small, who've all been impacted this past year. I'm just interested in your thoughts on what can be done or maybe done in the legislature this session to provide meaningful support to businesses, partnering on measures to assist in recovery, and probably equally important to avoid imposing unnecessary new regulatory or tax requirements on those businesses that could add to that burden at this point in the balance of our economy here. So interested, perhaps maybe start with Senator Abrams, given your Public Health Committee role, and then kick to others in terms of any specific proposals that you believe around COVID and that may impact businesses that you would support, or anything you have concerns about that might create problems for the businesses related to that.
Hey, thank you very much for letting me start off. I think that as the chair of public health, I think one of the things that we have tried to do since this all began last March, I can't believe we're almost a year into this, is balance between what's in the best interest of public health while still supporting the economy. Because what we found is how interrelated those things are. If people are feeling confident about how we're dealing with the pandemic, the more confidence they have, the more they're likely to go out and support businesses and do the things that they need to do for us to get the economy going again. So it really is balancing act. But we also know that people's health is more than just physical health. It's also their mental health and their feelings of financial security. And so we have to be sure that we're supporting businesses, that we're supporting people who may be out of work, and that we're looking to keep our communities as vibrant as we can during this and be ready to make them even more vibrant as we move forward. And that includes our businesses, our nonprofits, I know, have really suffered through this. So I would say overall, I don't want to take up too much time. I would say overall, that's my perspective as we move in to look at any legislation that's coming up, is that balance. And on appropriations in particular, to be looking at how we support our nonprofits, who I think have particularly suffered throughout this pandemic, and yet provide incredible services to our communities. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And certainly our nonprofits are a big part of our chamber as well, and have an interest in that. Anyone else want to take a stab at that? Feedback on that question?
Maureen, I'm happy to jump in here. I think we're fortunate. We have a lot of legislators that come at this from a small business angle. I, together with a few of the legislators on this call, I'm a small business owner. So I know all too well the challenges that we've faced, and I consider myself incredibly lucky because I didn't have to completely shutter my business as many did. And thanks so much to the work of Senator Abrams and on public health and all that they've been doing to try and strike an appropriate balance with keeping folks healthy, as she said, and keeping our economy going. That's no small feat. So businesses are suffering. We know this. Our smallest for-profits, our nonprofits that support so many of the services of the people of the state, and we need to be doing all we can to focus in on how we get these folks back to a good place again. Some of the bigger pieces, making sure that we replenish our unemployment without impacting small business in any way. That'll be incredibly important, and we need to be pushing for federal funding, grants to allow for us to replenish that and not impact our small businesses here in Connecticut. We want to make sure that we're leveraging federal programs and working with our businesses here and see what we can do to provide more grant dollars. Obviously we have the second round of PPP, which will be extremely helpful for many of our small businesses. We've had a couple of grant programs run through the state, through DECD. But we need to be doing more. We need to focus in on, relief from things like, some of the smaller things. I have a bill, SB 637, that I've co-introduced with Senator Needleman to exempt sales and use tax on PPE. We've seen a dramatic increase in small businesses need to purchase personal protective equipment. And there had been exemptions, ironically, right before the pandemic started. That exemption had been removed for many businesses. So we need to get that back into place and ensure that restaurants as well are covered by a sales and use tax exemption on any of that material that they're purchasing. And I'll let some of my colleagues who are driving some other initiatives. I know Senator Matt Lesser's worked on a public option for many years. I believe wholeheartedly that this is something that we can do to provide real relief for small businesses when it comes to health insurance. Senator Needleman, as I mentioned, co-introduced that sales and use tax exemption with me. I know I'm a co-sponsor on another proposal he has, SB 174, so I'll let him speak to that. But I think that we absolutely need to have our mind's eye on recovery here and what it's going to take to get our small businesses running again.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just add as well, this is Vinny. One of the other things I think we need to look at, having been a business, we've actually been shut down for 5 months out of this pandemic. And I'm in the hospitality industry, is trying to provide more certainty to the process. We've moved through this pandemic long enough where we should know the metrics and how soon we need to close a business. And right now for the latest time we were closed, we were given 3 days notice to shut down, and then 3 days notice on how to reopen. We lost weeks. Even right now, we're still trying to ramp up because our type of business, you need to book things in advance. So 3 days isn't enough. So our caucus is trying to propose that anytime modifications are done to the sector rules, that we're giving businesses 10 days notice so they have time to adjust, especially with restaurants, with food ordering. And I think we kind of need that to be permanent. When we went into this, we all thought that this would be a 6-month thing, that maybe we'd see a second wave in the fall and it would start to calm down again. But this potentially is long-term. And so I think our legislature needs to treat it as such. And looking at proposals like that, in addition to the ones that Senator Cohen mentioned, providing some of that tax relief would be helpful.
Great, thank you. Christine's got her hand up. Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Christine Pham, why don't you go ahead? You had your hand up, and then we'll get to Norm.
Thanks. Sorry, Norm. I'm glad that Senators Cohen and Darty Abrams brought up the nonprofits. I just want to focus on that for one more second, because I think too many people, including those of us in elected office, forget that nonprofits are a major employer. They employ 12% of the state's workforce. And without them during COVID, we would not have been able to survive, literally. So I think that one of the first things we need to do is make them financially whole, because of underfunding chronically for years, since 2007 at least, has put them at a terrible deficit, 461 million or something like that. And so I've introduced a bill to make sure that we tie the rate of reimbursement, we index it to the actual cost and value of their services that they provide, because we have to stop taking them for granted. And if pandemic has taught us nothing, it's the importance of social services. And I want to throw the arts groups in there as well, because of the quality of life. And that may not feel as urgent to some people right now, but the mental health aspect, certainly the arts help with that. So from my perspective, when we talk about the business community, we need to stop overlooking our nonprofits. Thank you.
Great point. Norm.
Hey, thank you, Maureen. Again, I don't think people understand how hard it's been for Senator Abrams, who's right in the thick of this for the last year. There's not a lot of downtime for people on the committee and who are involved in public health. So my heart goes out to her. Everybody has better ideas. Everybody's second guessing every decision. And overall, I think the general global view on how Connecticut is doing, which is very, very good relative to other states, is a testament to the hard work of the Public Health Committee, the Commissioner, and all the people involved in rollout of testing, rollout of vaccination. So thank you. I do want to say, Christine Cohen proposed the bill on moratorium on the tax of PPP for businesses, PPE. I'm losing my mind with acronyms here. I personally would like to see that extended to everyone. It's a medical necessity to buy masks right now. So the bill is in for businesses, but hopefully we can get it expanded and people for the duration of this pandemic don't have to pay for sales tax on PPE. The other thing I wanted to mention, which Senator Cohen mentioned, was the bill that we put in about a moratorium on fees for businesses that have been substantially impacted by the pandemic. We need to relieve some of the pressure on them. It's a kind of a double whammy when they lose all their revenue and at the same time they have to pay their filing fees and their annual fees to operate. Lastly, yesterday I had a conversation with Commissioner Lehman about exactly what Representative Candelora said. Certain businesses could open up in 2 days with a very limited notice, but certain other businesses need at least a general outline of a plan. And anything in the entertainment world cannot just flip a switch on and go back to operating. So he said that it was a good point and they're going to begin working on something. It'll be obviously tentative based on circumstances on the ground, but businesses like Vin's and other businesses that provide venues and theater, they need time to book and time to prepare for opening. If it's going to be this summer or this fall, they just need some general guidance and benchmark criteria of positivity rate, number of deaths, number of hospitalizations, whatever the criteria is. We need to be shooting for a goal that we can kind of live with. So that's really all I got. Everything, we're fighting to help people and businesses, and we need to help both because they work hand in hand. And we need to keep those nonprofits that Christine's talking about healthy because they're providing frontline help to so many people right now. And we also need to help the businesses as well as the people who need the services. It's just a catastrophe. I'm happy that in Connecticut, we tend to work together to try to solve these problems. And I hope this year that's what we can do. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Thank you. And Christy's got her hand up. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was so worried about the kids not making any noise. We could go on for hours and on COVID, and I don't disagree with any of my colleagues. I just want to put a bit of a different window on it, though. Our businesses are overwhelmed, and I don't know anybody in Connecticut who doesn't recognize that fact. And there were so many factors. If we can't keep everybody healthy, we can't keep our kids in school. And if our kids can't be in school, their parents can't go to work. And if their parents can't go to work, our businesses can't stay open. And if our neighbors aren't healthy enough, they're not going to be confident enough to go and support our local businesses. So my goal to help our businesses who are overwhelmed this session would be, we shouldn't be hearing bills that aren't COVID related. Now, there are many of us who have COVID related bills, every one of my colleagues here, but it is a different environment. Businesses and families have so much to handle right now. I don't think we should be even addressing anything that doesn't have an immediate connection to COVID.
Great point. Thank you. And last one on this question, we'll take Senator Lesser, and then we'll kick out another question. Who's now moved to his car.
Yes, no, I'm actually on the way to make sure that my my very pregnant wife gets to her doctor appointment. So we're going there. But thanks for bearing with us. Smart and information, but the other part is constituent services. So as other folks have talked about, making sure that businesses don't fall through the cracks right now is really critically important. I'll be talking later this morning with folks at the ECD in one area of business, and please, regardless of where you are in the district, recognize that all of us are your advocates and your voices. And so if obviously programs like PPP are vitally important, but making sure that businesses don't fall through the cracks is something that all of us can help you do. So please use us, put us to work as advocates for all of you.
Great, thanks.
All right, Maureen, why don't I take this next one here? It's budget related, and we'll get right into it here. And the question is, can you give us a sense of what you expect Governor Lamont's budget to look like and the remarks from his upcoming budget address? Do you share his goal of avoiding broad-based taxing increases for the upcoming biennium? And just a quick follow-up on that, you may have seen in our public policy agenda that the business community sees benefit in restoring R&D tax credits, including small manufacturers in the state's manufacturing tax program and other incentives through that program. So just some general thoughts on the budget process and whether you, in concept, share the governor's thoughts and feelings on avoiding broad-based tax increases. Why don't we start with, how about Representative Carney? We'll start on that one if he's interested in taking that one.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff, and good question. At this point, I'm not entirely sure what the governor's budget is going to look like. We recently had some updated revenue estimates, which actually reduced the deficit for the next two fiscal years. Now we're facing 1.2 billion for next fiscal year, and I think 1.3 billion for the following fiscal year. There have been articles saying the governor, could wipe out those deficits by dipping into the rainy day fund, which is at about $3 billion right now. I don't know if that's going to happen at this point. He has appeared to oppose some tax increases that have been proposed, like Senator Looney's statewide property tax. I don't believe the governor is in support of that. I don't think we should have broad tax increases right now, particularly, a lot of people are out there struggling because of COVID. Businesses are struggling because of COVID. And I think it would really be a bad idea for this state if we did do that. I think there's been a lot of waiting on the federal government to see if we get any additional funding from them. We did get, I think, about $1 billion that some people are waiting to see how the governor divvies that up. So it's sort of a waiting game right now. I'm very interested, though, to see what his budget is going to look like. We are facing big deficits the next 2 years, and I think bigger deficits the following two. So it's definitely, this year is important to try to set us on a trajectory towards a more, prosperous future for the state. So like I said, it's pretty much a waiting game at this point.
Great, thank you, Devin. I think we're particularly interested on all the folks that sit on finance, revenue, and bonding on this one. So perhaps Representative Chafee or Representative Phipps want to weigh in, and then we'll go to the Senate side. Brendan?
Sure. Yeah, I don't really know exactly what the governor's budget's going to look like at the moment. I'm impatiently waiting to see. I do agree that broad-based across-the-board tax increases are a bad idea right now, especially anything that's going to impact working families and small local businesses. our local business community has taken the brunt of COVID. When you look at just how disproportionate the recovery has been, the big businesses such as Amazon, tech companies, e-commerce companies, they're all doing great right now. A lot of consumers have shifted their behavior online, and coming out of this, to increase taxes on local businesses is going to kind of add insult to injury. I do support tax reform. I believe that our tax system is vastly unequal in the state. We're over reliant on property tax on the municipal level, which is hurting small businesses, and also just the tax structure overall, the way our income tax is set up, I believe is heavily skewed towards working people and small businesses. So I would like to see a comprehensive tax reform package. I have co-introduced or introduced certain bills to do that. I've signed on to a property tax credit. I've also signed on to a bill that will shift the tax burden kind of off of small and local businesses and working people onto people with incomes of over $500,000 a year. I think that, a lot of people are really struggling out of this, and we need to make sure that we make smart investments coming out of this. If you look at our recovery from the financial crash of 2008, 2009, we didn't make the investments we needed to, and our economy has suffered for the past decade. We've basically been stagnant. Wages are stagnant, growth is stagnant. So we need to make smart investments coming out of this and make sure that we actually do have a recovery this time.
Very good. Thank you very much. Let's go over to Representative Phipps for some thoughts.
Thank you, Vice President. I keep going back to, at the time, the Commissioner of Education and now our next Secretary of Education at the national level. He said early on in this COVID crisis that if we don't change anything during or after COVID, we'll never change anything moving forward. And that has always stuck with me and resonated with me, because I think a lot of the issues that we are all concerned about and a lot of things that we have all talked about, support for small business, growing our economy, making sure that we have a well-trained workforce, a lot of the issues in our systems, once again, that spotlight was brought right onto it. So, I mean, as for like, what do I expect from the governor's budget? I'm not quite sure. I will say this, the biggest piece of advice that I would give the governor is reducing and downright, to be frank, removing this idea of the debt diet. Now, I'm half Jamaican, for those that don't know, and we have a saying on the island that you can't spell diet without die. And right now, one of the easiest ways to reinvigorate and revitalize a lot of our communities is through bonding and support. And that's sort of economic support, which is why one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to be on the Finance Committee and specifically on the subcommittee for bonding is because that infusion of money into our communities is a way to build jobs. It is a way to build infrastructure, which is going to prepare us after this crisis. Those are the sort of investments that we need to make, and we need to make now. And I think a good example is, I said, the millions of dollars that the Middletown delegation brought for the renovation of the middle school. It was an environmental project. It was an economic impact project. It was a jobs project, and it's an education project. That is what bonding does, and that's why we need to eliminate that diet, invest smart, and infuse those funds right back into our community.
Thank you very much. Let's go over to the Senate side. I believe, if memory serves me, Senator Cohen and Senator Needleman both sit on finance. If they'd care to offer some thoughts on the budget process, we'd appreciate that very much. Let me start with Senator Cohen.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. And brand new to the Finance Committee. We've only had our organizational meeting. Everything starts a little bit later on the Finance Committee because obviously we are waiting on the governor's budget and working, sort of behind the scenes to craft the, the new biennial budget. So, as others have said before, we anxiously await the governor's budget. Little clues, as you had mentioned, about not implementing broad-based tax increases are wise. At this point, we have an economy of people who are struggling. The good news from an economic standpoint is that we As many have heard, we have had $138 million surplus due to a bump in capital gains receipts, tax receipts for this budget year. So that turned our deficit around, which is incredible to start off with. We've also had a tremendous savings on the spending side due to better Medicaid reimbursements and the like. So that's terrific news. We're going in. We already have a substantial rainy day fund, as you mentioned, which allows us to put some of this surplus towards pensions, which is obviously badly needed at this point. So, those are the things that we can focus on. We know that, these surpluses have been able to cut deficits in half as we look forward into the coming years. And so these are all good stories and set us up, in an already difficult budget cycle to be a little bit more successful. So I'm looking forward to the process, but a lot still to unfold.
Thank you, Christine, very much. Norm, is this something you want to take a quick shot at before you have to jump off? I know, as we mentioned, there are a lot of other legislative priorities this morning, but we'll do the best we can. Norm, what do you got on the budget process?
I seem to have lost my screen. I don't have a lot more to offer, but I will tell you that we're going to be threading a needle between all the need out there and not wanting to create an unreasonable tax burden on people that can't afford it now, especially with businesses being hurt. I know where the governor stands. I suspect everybody's going to have to give a little here. I had a long conversation with Senator Looney last night about his property tax proposal, which I think I know what he wants to achieve. I don't think the method is the right way, but it has to do with the inequitable distribution of pilot in the cities. I think we need to fix that. I think that pilot is disproportionately impactful in the big cities. They get the same reimbursement that Greenwich or Essex gets for pilot payment when we have very little of it. So there are things we're going to have to fix, but I'm not convinced that broad-based tax increases are going to happen this year. And yet we have a large amount of unending need. But we have to see what the federal government does. If there's money from them to help people, that's where it's got to go. And I'm anxiously awaiting to hear his speech and his budget proposal before we even begin to talk about it. Thanks, Jeff. And thank you all. I've got to jump off. I have to go somewhere this morning.
We understand, Senator. Thank you
Thank
very
you, Senator.
much. Because the budget is such an important issue to our membership and to the business community at large, do we have any other legislators that are on with us this morning that want to weigh in on fiscal policy or the budget in general?
All right. Hearing none, I will kick off the next question on, excuse me, on tourism. And, as you know, tourism, which has obviously been severely impacted by the pandemic, is a critical industry in Middlesex County and something the Middlesex Chamber has worked really hard to, continue to keep moving and setting up a model for state tourism districts and things. Obviously, we have to get through the pandemic and be able to have those hospitality venues be open and functioning. But I guess just what kind of support do you envision and for the tourism sector as we move forward, and that so we're positioned when those venues can reopen, that we will be able to advance that quickly and effectively. So.
Looks like Representative Parker raised his hand. Go ahead, John Michael.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate this question. I was glad to see that tourism was among the top priorities shared with the Chamber's legislative action list. There's obviously a critical need to support this sector. I'm excited to support an effort that beginning in name and then expanding into funding also expands to look at an arts, culture, and tourism sector more broadly, because we know that, as you mentioned, arts venues and cultural opportunities fit there. There's also, as my colleague Representative Palm mentioned before, so many nonprofits in that space that are critical to our workforce and our communities. So I put in a bill this year, which is the result of work that a few of our different arts councils and statewide groups have been doing to expand funding into the tourism funds, to rename it as the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Fund. And that will make sure that at a time when there is potential challenges on the horizon there, we continue to fund not only our tourism centers, but also the Connecticut Office of the Arts, Office of Humanities, and some of the statewide groups that can really be there and not only provide direct resources, but the sort of advice and guidance and community that have been helpful to so many of the individual organizations that are looking for guidance during this time. So excited to get to work on that.
Excellent. Looks like Representative Palm has her hand raised. Go ahead, Christine.
I'll be very brief because I know some of my colleagues haven't had a chance to speak. I think we need to also remember always the environment when we talk about tourism. If we don't take care of, for example, the hydrilla problem in the Connecticut River, our boating industry is really going to suffer. So when we think about tourism, we have to think about how it's inextricably linked to environmental causes, which I fear may take a back seat during COVID because people don't understand the connection to economic recovery, not to mention psychic recovery, and the preservation of our wild spaces. So that's my my plug for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Candelora, care to weigh in on that one?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to go back to reiterating the need to sort of provide planning, for our theaters, our larger venues, even for me, for my sporting events. The executive orders have been extended to April 20th, and I'm already hearing from constituents of, can I sign up for summer camps? The Boy Scout camps are starting to try to ramp up. So we're going to need to just provide, I think, some guidance this spring, and certainly push the governor's office to do that, because if we wait until April 20th for guidelines to come out, it may foreclose the ability for these facilities to be able to book stuff for the summertime. But then the other piece of it, is taking a look at things like our hotel tax right now. I think it's at 14 or 15%. Maybe we cut that in half for the next year throughout this pandemic, so that we could become a little bit more competitive. Even all of our admissions fees, which has taken a big hit in the budget anyway, taking the cap off of that, the 10% admission fee, because places like Massachusetts don't have those taxes. It could help put our theaters in line and hopefully be able to recover, because once we start to recover, we want to be able to just not only compete for residents to go to these facilities, but we want to be able to be in competition with our neighboring states. And so I think we've got to look at that parity.
Excellent. Appreciate that. Any other thoughts on tourism before we move on to another issue area?
Jeff, I just want to say I have to run. I have transportation and but thank you everyone for this morning.
Okay, Deb, thank you very much. Appreciate the remaining legislators hanging in there with us. We're going to continue on here with this important conversation. And speaking of transportation, let's just go right into that. Our public policy agenda, as you've seen, encourages the legislature to work to meet the state's critical transportation infrastructure needs that are essential for the economic vitality of the state. Simple question: do you believe that a bipartisan transportation effort is going to happen this session, and do you believe it is a top priority? I believe Representative Haynes is on transportation. Irene, are you still with us?
I think she jumped off.
Okay. How about, we haven't heard from Senator Ciccarello or Representative Quinn. Perhaps they have some thoughts on transportation and where we should go. Paul?
Thank you. I actually have to hop off for a 9. I'm not on transportation or not reviewed anything, so I don't want to speak to that. I do want to thank everybody for the opportunity. I do apologize that I have to hop off.
Okay, thank you very much. How about Senator Lesser? You seem to have reappeared. You want to take a shot at the transportation question?
Sure, Jeff. Hopefully, I don't know if my connection is steady, but if you can hear me, yeah. No, we have a long-term transportation funding crisis in the state. We are due to have a to exhaust our transportation fund in the next couple of years, and that is an ongoing concern, especially as we know we've got to make investments in our in our region's transportation infrastructure. That at the same time, I know that President Biden has really prioritized transportation investments, and so making sure that we've got a local match to take advantage of potential stimulus projects, I think, is really, really critical. I put in a bill looking at potential stimulus partnerships involving the railroad infrastructure in Middlesex County. I'm hoping to work with the Department of Transportation on that specific issue, and I think that's a particular area of opportunity. But I'm really interested in working with the chamber to sort of find ways for us to come up with a local match, so that if there is a big federal stimulus, we're really able to take advantage of that in the next few months.
I appreciate that, Senator, very much. Thank you. Yes, your connection is fine. You were coming through loud and clear. Before we move off of transportation, Mike Quinn, you want to take a shot, or perhaps John Michael Parker? Any thoughts on transportation? Even Christine Cohen, Senator Carter, certainly welcome to weigh in as well.
Yeah, I mean, as all of my colleagues have said, we clearly have long-term issues, and the only way that we're going to be able to resolve them is through a bipartisan effort. Looking at rail has obviously taken a hit during this, and I think that it's going to have to be studied closely to see if there is still going to be the need that we thought there was going to be, based on the number of commuters who are no longer commuting because they're able to work from home, and how many businesses are going to keep that up after this pandemic eases. In my private law practice, one of the areas that I work in is workers' compensation claims, and the Workers' Compensation Commission almost immediately went to a phone-in hearing system after the shutdown started. And quite frankly, it's worked very well. So I think that a lot of businesses are going to find that telecommuting and working from home is going to be more of the norm and not just a temporary solution. And because of that, I think that we're really going to have to reevaluate, particularly commuter rail, as to how much the need is going to be there in the future, because things have certainly changed.
Understood very much. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move into another issue area here while we still have some time. This question comes from a gentleman by the name of Jay Polk, who is one of our great members, and he's the owner of Willowbrook Spirit Shop in Cromwell. He's concerned, as a number of other package store owners are, about the proposal that will allow wine to be sold in grocery stores and through other avenues. Certainly a major concern in that industry. Because from their perspective, that would take away a huge portion of one of the only 3 items that owner-operated package stores are allowed to sell, and in their words, would put it in the hands of larger corporations, some of which are not headquartered in Connecticut or even the United States. And this is on behalf of the package store industry. So I kick that over to some of our legislators that are on the call this morning. Any thoughts, concerns, to weigh in on the package store issue? Let's start with Representative Phipps. Looks like your hand's up.
Yeah, I was going to follow Representative Plum. I saw her hand raised first. Sorry. Oh, no, but since you already caught on me already going, we might as well start now. So I had actually a great conversation with Mr. Jay Polk the other day. He said he has one of my favorite liquor stores in all of Greater Middletown and Middlesex County. And here's why. When I walk in and I need a bottle to match like my filet that I'm going to do with the blue cheese crust, I can go right to him, or I can go to one of his staff and say, hey, what bottle should I buy? What would match well with this? What would pair well with this? Or I'm personally a bourbon drinker and you can only drink so much Maker's Mark. What's another good recommendation? Even if we expand it, and I'm not saying I'm in favor of it, but if we did, I would still make sure I went to Mr. Polk's store because of that service, because of that expertise. And I think we have to somewhat reframe how we look at our small business community and our independent business owners, and recognizing that they have a very unique value proposition that no one else can do. And I said, and he's a perfect example. And I shared that with him when I talked to him, I think it was actually yesterday, if not 2 days ago. And then I asked him a second question. I think this is really where I could use some help from our independent business community. Like my wife, who's an entrepreneur here in Middletown, who owns a growing group practice. So not only should it be about what are ways that we can protect this particular industry without expanding options and choice, but what are ways that we can actually empower your business? I need some good ideas on what ways we can do things for you, and what else do you need? What would make it not just easier, but more efficient to do business here in Connecticut? And those are the sort of empowerment sort of policies and empowerment sort of framework in which I like to do this work. And I am all ears for that, for those sort of ideas. And I will make sure that I share my cell phone in the chat. So for anyone that has additional ideas about this industry or any other industry, once again, what things can we do to empower you to make your business stronger?
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate those thoughts. Q, how about Representative Palm? Christine, go ahead.
Well, I have two questions, actually. My first is, why is Quentin Phipps not inviting me to his house for dinner? Because I got to figure out how blue cheese goes with fish. Some of us struggle a lot with certain bills. Some bills seem to me, I know how I feel about it. I feel passionate. I feel informed. I will admit this is a bill that is one that I'm struggling with, because I want to make sure that we protect, of course, our small businesses, but also our vineyards. And I would love help from this gentleman that you mentioned. I have heard from some lobbyists and some small business owners here in my town. I wonder if there's a way for us to do it that will ensure that local wines only are represented. That's probably not legal. We ran into this with tolls, where we wanted to tax only out-of-state cars, but there was a lawsuit about that. So I'm just throwing it out there for all of us. Is there a way for us to make sure that if we were to go ahead and allow grocery stores to do this, I don't think that big box stores like Stop and Shop are going to treat our local vintners and distributors the same way as maybe the local IGA would do. But I know it's always an economy of scale question. So I'm just throwing it out there for people who are more knowledgeable than I about this. I would appreciate some guidance, because I'm struggling with this one. How do we protect our small businesses and also allow Connecticut vintners and distributors to have a toehold and thrive? Because I hate when two equally good constituent groups are pitted against one another, and that's what I fear may happen with this. So I'm open to some suggestion on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. We look forward to helping you sort through that and working with you on that and many other issues. We still have Representative Quinn, Senator Cohen, Senator Lesser, Representative Parker, which we appreciate you hanging in there. Any thoughts on the liquor store question? Senator Cohen?
Sure. Well, I will say, and I appreciated the comments of my colleagues, and I too want an invite over to Q's house for dinner, because my mouth started watering at 9 o'clock this morning for filet with a blue cheese crust, but and bourbon. Wow. So I share his sentiments. I have my local haunts that I visit and lean on them for advice. And I suspect that, you just can't beat that type of customer service, and you're certainly not going to get that in your local Stop and Shop or Big Y. These are really convenience purchases, for them. But I also completely understand, where these small businesses are coming from. I as a small business owner myself, while a competitive environment is good for our economy, it's not always good. I don't necessarily want a Brugger's Bagels opening up down the street from me. So I get it. And, to Representative Palm's comment, unfortunately, there are some interstate commerce laws that come into play there, and it's very tricky. This really, I don't know the intentions of the General Law Committee with this bill, but I know last year I have farm wineries in my district, and there's great concern from the farm winery community after a 2019 liquor overhaul, what that has done to our farm winery community. And can we do something to focus in just on the farm wineries? I think that's more of a discussion that we need to be having rather than, Connecticut only wines. But is there something that we can hone in on the agricultural piece of this? And that's some research is warranted there. I actually do have another bill, and I hate to call attention to it during this forum, given the angst over the subject matter, but I have a bill looking to have hard ciders at grocery stores. But for the same reason, I have a farm cidery, a couple in the district, as well as some craft breweries that are farm breweries, and wanting to support those small businesses as well. And so it's just this balance of, how do we strike it? How do we ensure that we're not putting one business out and allowing another to thrive? And we need to go through the public hearing process to really understand how best to strike that balance.
Thank you, Senator. Looks like maybe Senator wants to weigh in on this one. Matt, you still with us?
I am still with you. Thank you. No, I just wanted to thank Representative Phipps for patronizing a local Cromwell business. I'm of changes that would, adversely affect small businesses in my district, especially right now in the middle of a pandemic. But one of the things that we can do is wait to see what the General Law Committee does, follow the public hearing process, and and weigh in and hear the arguments of both sides. But I'm very sympathetic to Jay's concerns, and we'll just have to let the process play out.
Thank you very much. I'm going to send it back to Maureen here, but just a quick housekeeping note. We have a number of questions that have come into the Q&A and the chat. I don't think we're going to get to all of them this morning, but I will say that our legislative delegation is very strong at constituent service, and we'll to you, and please take advantage of that response and make sure you reach out to their offices. So back to you, Maureen.
All right, I think that's a good one. Pivot to my kind of last question here, and we'll let you folks that have been hung with us for the duration off the hook as well. But, everybody's adapting to this new virtual session, and, our virtual public hearings are going to be very different. The ability to have that direct engagement, talking to people is going to be very different. There's going to be a ton of electronic communications coming your way. So I guess, how do you envision, or what do you recommend for your constituents or your main members here of the chamber to best engage and be heard? What's your advice to us to be able to make sure that in the piles of emails and other ways you're going to get communication this time, how to be most effective and to carry the messages on behalf of our local businesses?
That's great, Maureen. We'd appreciate if everyone that's still with us could weigh in on this one. So let's start with, how about Representative Quinn?
Yeah, being the new legislator and not having personally experienced how things were before, I come at this with a little different perspective. I think that the old way of doing things is still probably the best way of doing things, but I think that we need to, for the long term, factor in the electronic component to committee hearings. Having to go up to Hartford for a day and spend the whole day there because you don't know exactly when you're going to testify, I think is probably more of an inconvenience than trying to just remember to sign on from home and check in. So, I think that we definitely need to see what has worked during the pandemic and what hasn't worked and go forward with that. In terms of constituents getting a hold of us, I agree that probably emails are going to get lost the more that there are. So probably the phone call is the best way if you're not going to be able to see us in person. And clearly that's not going to be possible in a lot of instances.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay,
How about
Matt, I see
Senator
you got your
Lesser?
hand up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be challenging for everyone. It's going to be challenging for constituents, for legislators, just trying to make this new electronic environment work. That said, we've adjusted the rules to try to even up the playing field and make things easier. So, for example, on all public hearings, traditionally it was a first come first serve basis, but understanding that getting onto Zoom sometimes is complicated. We now have a lottery system for all meetings, so that special interests can't jump ahead of regular constituents in the order of a public hearing. But reach out to us however we're available. So I for example, a lot of people are contacting me on Twitter these days or Facebook, but I'm spending a lot of time making sure that I respond to emails. Obviously, I'm getting a ton, but really trying to make sure that we're not letting people get lost in a really difficult time. There's never been a more challenging time to operate a business in Connecticut just because of the pandemic, and making sure that we're responsive is going to be really important.
Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
Christine Palm, like she's ready to go. Go ahead, Christine.
Yes, I just want to say briefly that I moderated a panel recently for the League of Conservation Voters, and in preparing for that, I took a little straw poll of my colleagues about how they would best like people to reach them, and there was almost unanimous, and I thought it might be helpful if I shared this, because I literally just asked them this question. Most everybody prefers to be reached by their state official email. It's always a good idea to CC our aides, and I think you can find that out if you go on the CGA website, or if not, we can tell you. If you have a cause that I'm going to call a mass-produced or a lobbying effort, please don't bombard us with emails that come through a Slacktivist network such as One Click Politics, myvoice.com, because we can't respond to those. We hit reply and it goes into the ether, and then people say, you never got back to me. It is physically, technically impossible for us to reply. So if you feel strongly enough about something, please give us the courtesy of an individual email with your own contact info. Every colleague I have does their best to get back to people. I certainly do. I know everybody on this call does as well, on both sides of the aisle, by the way. So please don't bombard us with the same email from a bunch of different people and then not give us a chance to get back, because for me, it's about quality over quantity. And then if you do want to do a sort of a petition or to prove your point, I think for me, a letter with 30 names signed on is more effective than getting bombarded. I will share this with you. This is literally 1 week of postcards that were sent to my personal home mailbox from a group with a special interest. And I think a better way to do it is a letter with a lot of names on it. And if my colleagues disagree, by all means, jump in. But our official email is the best way. I am personally not a fan of Twitter. So unlike, I think it was Lesser who said people reach him that way. If you try to get me through Twitter, I'm not probably even going to see it. So learn what your individual legislator likes. I know QFIPs, I'm a baby boomer. I like email. Just send me an email and I'll get back to you, or a phone call. But yeah, if you rely on Twitter and Instagram, make sure that your legislator also uses those methods.
That's very helpful.
That's
And
from my
appreciate.
very scientific poll that I just took.
No, it's great. Some insight from broader perspective, because we all share that, volume versus substance, and just, how to make it easy for folks to respond to us. So, all right. Any other thoughts on that?
I can add. So I was laughing because there are very few people that are better at Twitter than the senior member of the Middletown delegation, Senator Matt Lesser. But I am in no way as good at using Twitter as he is, unless you want to talk about MMA or video games. It's pretty much the only thing I use for Twitter, but I digress. But I was a parent advocate for the last 6 years. So teaching people how to navigate political systems is, once again, it's a joy of my life. It's something that I care deeply about. And once again, it's also my occupation. So here are some really, really quick tips that I think some other folks have already regarded. One, you just have to make that first step, right? You got to make that call. You have to send an email. You just have to do it. A few days ago, I just canceled, I had a second phone number for just legislative information and calls, and gave the number out to everyone. I got rid of it because no one used it and it was just costing me money, right? So here it was, like I said, I had a phone number dedicated just to being able to talk with constituents, talk with business owners, just to once again share conversations about policy. And I said no one used it. So make sure you reach out. 2, many of us will have community coffee hours. And now that they're done by Zoom, you don't have to even be there in person. I know mine is going to be scheduled for February 20th, I think it's a Saturday. Make sure you show up. In the historical past, I think there's been like 2 or 3 people that show up to all of them. And I think we can really, I said, broaden that base. The third thing I would say, and I think just kind of just reiterating what Representative Palm has shared, is that the mass sort of emails and the postcards, they can work, but I think that individualization, especially with calls to the office, are super, super helpful. I know anyone that calls my office, I make sure that I call them back. You see, I shared my cell phone number today. Having that one-on-one conversation, so you can really get into the nuance and the complexity of these issues is what's really, really important for us to do our best work as we represent you. And I think also in that deeper conversation, we can have some more powerful ideas about ways that we can help. So I think sometimes we think, here's what legislators can do. But a lot of times it's about information and have you seen this program, or have you talked to this nonprofit, or have you tried this method? That's really where we're going to be able to help you be able to help yourselves. And that's where I find that's some of my favorite parts of doing this work.
Very
Senator Cohen,
helpful.
care to
Thank
weigh
you.
in?
I don't have too much to add after that comprehensive list of ways to, I think that's fantastic. I mean, I guess the only thing I would say is to, when you do engage and email your legislators, make sure to copy your entire delegation too, because you've got a representative and a senator and who often work very closely together and can sort of tag team an issue. Sometimes one knows perhaps a little bit more about an issue than another. We don't always share committees, which is a good thing. We have more breadth of knowledge of what's going on in the legislature. So that would be the only thing that I would add at this point. But all of us are incredibly responsive to emails and especially right now during these times when everything is online. And the legislative process, getting involved in that process has really never been easier. As Representative Quinn mentioned, the ability to get online and testify right from the comfort of your home is a really great thing. So everybody can get involved this year without limitations to, not being able to drive up to Hartford to sign up for a hearing and then wait for hours and hours. So.
Looks like Coach McHugh is, I'm sorry, Maureen, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna kick it over to Coach or wrap it up here. I appreciate everybody's, input here and the process today. It's been very helpful, and hope it gave our members here some good insights into your thoughts, and more importantly, how to engage if they do have specific issues or concerns. So turn it back to Jeff.
Over to you, Big L, for the close. Thank you, everybody,
Okay,
for
well,
joining.
first of all, I want to thank all of our legislators, especially the group that lasted right to the end. You got all getting special stars on that, so I really appreciate it. Don't worry, I'm Irish, so I'll remember that. But thank you so much. And also big thanks to Comcast and Kristen for their great support. Maureen and her leadership has been outstanding. She's just a wonderful business person, more importantly, a great friend. And of course, Jeff did a great job as usual. And Johanna Bond, who's in the background, getting everything done for us in here, which is so important. Before we leave, I just want to wish everyone to be safe and continue to move forward. But in your thoughts, please think of Joe Serra. He is going through some very difficult times now. I've been in touch on an ongoing situation with his family. So just remember him in your prayers and your thoughts as the family and himself are going through some difficult times. He's been a long time friend and supporter of our chamber and of the greater Middletown area. So again, and especially Casho, which is located throughout the state of Connecticut. So have a great day, everyone. And remember, the sun always shines in Middlesex County. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.